And maybe we'll introduce our 10th anniversary guest.
Exactly, because 10 years represents a huge body of work. And so we're very happy to have you here to celebrate that.
And here is Paula Wife, who's the director of Children at the Well,
Yes.
and her lead storyteller coach. Is that fair enough, Allison?
I'm an assistant.
Okay, well, it's Allison, and I'll mess up the hyphen if I don't look. Lerman Gluck. There you go. Paula and Allison, it is just remarkable. When I think about the work that you and your other coaches and volunteers and the kids have done, I sigh in just joy because it's been such a wonderful experience to observe or be part of. And
Thank you, Joe.
it really, and as I remember, the kernel of this idea was you and your daughter going to an interfaith story circle meeting and kind of realizing that she was the only kid there?
Well, that was, you could call it a kernel.
A kernel.
Another kernel of ours happened when Kate mentioned, by the way, National Storytelling Network is having an award contest, the Brimstone. And we had, some of us from the Interfaith Story Circle had been interested in starting a youth program, even before Ada came on the scene. But we thought, well, let's do it. Let's see if we can get our ideas together. We wrote it up, submitted it, and we won the Brimstone. So that's where our story began.
And the Brimstone is an award given by the National Storytelling Network, which is the National Association of Storytellers. Mm-hmm. And they only give out 1 or 2 a year, I think.
That year, I think there were 2.
There were 2.
Yes.
And right here, your efforts, your little kernels came together and got that award, which gave you the funding to really be creative.
Well, to start, yes.
Start.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, $5,000 is a nice start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We made it stretch.
Yes.
Then we had to figure out the rest.
Yes. Yes. That's the hard part of the 10-year part of things.
And you guys were talking about the uses of stories as seasoned adults. Mm-hmm. And with Children at the Well, we help the kids find stories that they want to tell for their own purposes, and they are many, to connect them with their traditions, the religious traditions, cultural traditions, their community, to help them understand more about that, to help them find their voice as individuals, and to help them figure out what's really important to them and what they want to say through the stories. So that's a different approach.
Now, Paula, take us through who the kids are and kind of how they find themselves or how you find them and engage them in the storytelling. And then, because the kind of thing you're talking about requires a little bit of reflection and some mentoring. So you've got storytellers that are doing that kind of stuff. But just give us the balance between the kids and who they are and the mentors.
We try to find kids from all areas in the capital region. And we've tried many different ways, and we'll try more next year.
But they represent all of the major religious communities in a way.
Hindu, Jewish, Christian, Catholic, Unitarian. We had a Baha'i student. We had somebody who was an atheist. Actually, a few.
A few atheists.
We've had...
That's called disorganized religion? I'll get in trouble with that. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. But we are always trying to reach new groups. So that was one of the reasons that we made a move this year to have our coaching sessions down in Albany at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany.
And that's right on Washington Avenue, the lower end of Washington.
Yeah.
Almost on the old campus of the University of Albany.
Oh, yeah.
Is that kind of the way?
Yeah, right across the street on Washington. Yeah.
Right. And that's more centrally located, do you think, than other places that you've been working in Colony or?
Oh, absolutely. Easier to draw people from urban environments.
Okay.
In Troy and Albany. And we find it's much livelier. People are coming by. Allison's going to talk about that a little bit more too, how it is using the space down there. As far as our coaches go, we have professional storytellers. We have two who didn't start with us, but they came in soon after we started. We have two emeritus storyteller coaches who are waiting in the wings if they need to be called in to do subbing or something like that. And we have some others who have been assistants. So we've reached a number of storytellers, and through them, the greater storytelling community.
So you're diverse in many ways, many aspects.
We try. Yeah.
Now you generally hold your gatherings of the kids where the coaches and the kids work on some of the things you described. Is it generally just for the first 6 months of the year that you have yourself engaged with these kids, or does it go for another semester, if you will, at all?
No, it's not even 6 months. It's usually January. It's weekly, January to late April, early May, and we have a few performances. And that is the weekly coaching sessions where the whole group's meeting together.
And when a student decides to participate, do they come already prepared with a story from their faith base, or do they just kind of show up and say, so what's going on here, and go from there?
Sometimes they come prepared.
Okay.
Other times the coaches help them. Allison, how's it been going this year?
With students who have been participants of the program for a number of years, they sometimes know to come prepared with a story, but we have a lot of first and second years this year, and for them it's been a process of figuring out how to find a story, whether it's from their own cultural history, from a book, from a friend, whatever it is. There are lots of different ways to find stories from their own imaginations. And then the process of developing the story is what we do in the room, generally.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. Now, and your own background is in storytelling, or is it in arts and drama, or?
My personal background is in theater.
Okay.
I'm a theater educator, but I think storytelling is a big part of that. A lot of what I do has to do with working with young people and young women, creating new works of theater. So it's basically all storytelling. And I like to talk about, at Children at the Well, I like to talk with the young people about the act of listening as a large part of why we tell stories as well. First, sharing ourselves, and then secondly, giving other people attention, especially young people who don't necessarily get a lot of attention in their lives, and making space for that as an important thing is one of the main reasons that I'm interested in theater. So storytelling has been an easy thing to slip into.
I think of storytelling as the mother of theater.
Absolutely. I would agree.
Not the father?
You might think of it as the parent. Okay.
I'm just you know what I'm doing. I'm sorry.
Like I needed another older brother.
Yeah, right. We always say that we're married, but not to each other.
Yes.
When you think back to the 10 years, and you've made a significant move of base camp, and you've got a little more staff. When did Children at the Well begin to feel like it was its own personality, its own thing? It was going to go on from wherever it had started. Because there was a time when you must have felt that this was a little bit risky, and then there was a time where you're a little bit more comfortable with it. Do you remember that? Maybe you're not comfortable with it at all. Maybe that's a fair. Maybe that's
It feels less risky, a little less risky now, or
Well, you know, at the very, I don't know, at the very beginning, our idea was, well, we have a group of 15 or 20 kids. I don't remember exactly how many. And we thought, well, next year we'll find another group. But half of that original group came back.
Yeah.
They liked it.
They liked each other. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think from that moment on, I don't think I was alone either, felt like we've got something here.
Right.
And this is going to keep going.
Yeah.
We're not sure exactly how, but we're going to keep moving with it.
That's interesting. It's kind of like the repeat business, if you will. If you want to be a retailer, you have that customer coming in the second time. And And what I noticed just in the performances, you mentioned the couple of showcases that you have every year, that you could see how the young people got more aware of themselves as really as people as opposed to just storytellers. Confidence, expression, being able to integrate that story of, if you will, my Jewish heritage or my Catholic heritage with who they were becoming, because you could actually see this other presence that might have been there, but was certainly more visible at this time. So, you know, I want to do one thing, because we are about storytelling, and there's one, what I would call, priceless story that has come out of Children at the Well, and it's actually was told and lived by Kate and I, but Kate took it to the national level, because in a storytelling slam at the national conference, Kate Dunning told this story about your kids standing up and telling stories in an adult gathering and describing the impact of your program. And it's a great story. And would you please tell it?
And did you mention I won the Story Slam?
You know, I slipped that part. I keep leaving that part out.
Yes. It's a very informal competition. The judges got maybe 2 minutes of instruction. They got 10 seconds to come up with a number. But I won, so I'm going to claim that the truth.
That's true.
That this story won the 2010 Story Slam at the National Storytelling Network's conference in Los Angeles. And I created the story for the Story Slam, the story competition, because the rules were it had to be a personal story that fit the theme of the conference, many stories, one world. And I didn't have a personal story like that. But then I realized I had lived through something that fit so well. Once there were 3 young men, a Jew, a Hindu, and a Muslim. Now, this might sound like the beginning of a joke to you, but it's actually the story of one path to world peace. But first, we need to make a detour to the village of Helm. According to Jewish tradition, everyone who lives in the village of Helm is a fool. Here's a little story from Helm. One day, 2 men in Helm were walking outside together when it started to rain. One looked at the other and said, "Haven't you noticed it's starting to rain? Why don't you open your umbrella?" "Oh, it won't make any difference. My umbrella is full of holes." "Then why did you bring it?" "I didn't think it was going to rain." So now that you know a little bit about the village of Helm, let's go back to those 3 young men, the Jew, the Hindu, and the Muslim. They met as members of Children at the Well, Youth Storytelling for Peace and Understanding, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this April 2015. They were among a group of teenagers who were brought together to learn the art of storytelling by learning to tell stories from their different faith traditions. They gather weekly for about 4 months, 4 months of Sundays, and then put on a presentation. I believe I've been to every one of those presentations. Each year it's held in a different house of worship. When you enter, you see people bringing in trays of food that look and smell wonderful for the potluck supper afterwards, vegetarian to accommodate everyone's dietary needs. And then it's colorful watching the people come in. The Hindu women are wearing beautifully colored saris, and which makes this look, well, almost dull. The Muslim women usually have head coverings that coordinate with their outfits. Then the storytelling starts. One year, Ben told a story, as he usually does, from the village of Helm. Then Ritham, the Hindu young man, told a story from his tradition. Again, a comedic story. These two young men are brilliant mimics and use that talent to bring their stories to life. Now, Kalafala, the Muslim young man, usually has a somewhat solemn expression on his face. But when he smiles, his whole face lights up. That year, he's told a story of his personal journey from graduating from his Islamic school in the 8th grade and becoming a 9th grader in a public high school. That year, he learned a lot about that community, and they learned about him and his Islamic community. But what I like more than the stories or the food is watching these kids together. Before and after the program, they just glom together and chatter away. And after the program, do you notice I forgot that part, but I stuck it in there? And they said, "Yeah, you did good." It's clear. It's so clear that these teenagers from so many different backgrounds have become friends. Now, one year, there was a separate gathering of storytellers. The New York State storytellers had a one-day meeting, and those three young men were there. Near the end of the day, we gathered for a story swap, where we sit in a circle, and one person tells a story, and then someone says, "Oh, I'd like to follow that one." But during this swap, as often happens, there was a pause after a story. No one was volunteering to tell the next one. So the facilitator, my friend Joe, turned to the three young men and said, "Do one of you have a story?" And Ritham, the Hindu young man, turned to Ben, the Jewish young man, and said, "Ben, tell them a story from Helm." Kalafala, the Muslim young man, smiled and said, "Yes, tell them a story from Helm." So Ben did, and we all laughed. I remember thinking two things that afternoon, right after Ben finished telling. I remember thinking, I wonder how many places in the world today you would see three young men from those different faith traditions gathering together as friends and sharing stories. And then I thought, whoever would have guessed that one path to world peace goes straight through the village of Helm.
Thank you, Kate. That was just wonderful. And this little attribution or of appreciation that I'm doing is one of the cultural elements of the Interfaith Story Circle, because when we're in those meetings, we don't applaud. We rub our hands together and generate a little heat in a different way, because the story has warmed our hearts, as that one did. And that story summarizes a lot of what Children at the Well is all about and what you've accomplished.
Yes, it does. And always love hearing it, and I'm looking forward to hearing it in April, too.
I'm very honored that you asked me to tell it at the 10th. Because it includes, it's just, it was supposed to be 5 minutes. I'm not sure if today it was exactly 5 minutes, but it just glances over the family part. But I think that's a real important part too. Which was always, as I understand, one of Gert Johnson was the co-mother, the co-mother hen of Children at the Well.
I meant to mention Gert in our introduction. It was Gert who started the Interfaith Story Circle more than 20 years ago.
Right.
And we think of the Interfaith Story Circle as the parent organization.
Right.
Organization.
And Gert
Children at the Well.
Johnson was the health education teacher at Bishop Gibbons Notre Dame High School, and the chaplain.
No, religion.
Religion.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Right.
and actually was remarkable in that she was really very purposeful about an ecumenical connection on story, and also the interfaithstorycircle.org website will give you background on that. But there are monthly gatherings in many houses of worship around the region. It's the way I've gotten into a mosque, a Hindu temple, and other things that I probably wouldn't have found my way into.
Kate, I wanted to say that along the way we acquired the name Children at the Well Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding. And further along the way, I've come to the realization that peace can take different forms. There's peace, world peace, and there is the peace that comes in an individual when you find out what it is you're all about, what you need to say, and then how to say it. And having expressed that peace, P-I-E-C-A-C, having expressed that, then finding personal peace.
And personal understanding.
Yep. And understanding with other people as well about where you're coming from, where they're coming from, and reaching an understanding. Yeah.
And certainly everybody that's been associated with the programs given the Interfaith Story Circle as well, does build understanding at several different levels. I mean, even for those who come occasionally or only to the showcases, you can't help but get a broader view of who the world is and who you are in it from being at those things. I think that's kind of...
I have just a little specific. For instance, when the Interfaith Story Circle was at a Hindu temple, I never took comparative religions. I was brought up Catholic and didn't really pay much attention to religion. But when we were in the Hindu temple, they said they believe in one God, but there are many manifestations. And I went, right. Now, so if there is a supreme being, I'm sure this being is beyond human comprehension, but having many different manifestations gives our puny little brains a little ways in, different ways in. I thought, oh, I understand that. I think that's really, really brilliant.
No, you're right.
And so, one of them has an elephant's trunk. Well, I'm sure there's a wonderful story behind that.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of segue